Hello and welcome to Meet the Author with Lehman Library. I'm Derek and joining me today is Renee Wallace. Miss Wallace began writing teenage love stories in high school and continued to follow her passion as a romance author after becoming a hair care professional through Paul Mitchell Systems. She believes that fiction can be romantic and steamy, yet also true to life. She's here today to share her insights and experience as an author and to read from her latest book, Mimi's Heart. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you for joining us today. Yes, it is
very happy to be here.
All right. Renee, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a mother of three wonderful girls, one who just recently got a scholarship to University of Tampa. I'm a licensed stylist also, a crafter. I also do crafting, so yeah, anything creative, I'm all for it. So I'm always trying to tap into something new, you know, from books to making chessboards and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just I would like to say a Renaissance woman, but I don't want to sound like I'm too full of myself. But I like to do a little bit of everything. So
okay, well, that's nice to hear. Along those same lines, tell us, why did you want to become an author, and or how did you become an author?
I have always loved reading, and I've always loved romance. When I was a child, I mean, literally 10, 11 years old, I would like sneak and get my mother's Harlequins and read, you know, and read them, you know. And I fell in love with reading first. I mean, in my opinion, in order to be a good writer, you have to be able to enjoy reading also. But when I got in high school, I started doodling and writing, you know, poetry every now and then. Then I started writing, you know, little short love stories with like heartthrobs. At my time, it was like Boys to Men and things like that. So I would write love stories, and before I can get a page done, someone was taking it out of my hand to read it. So I just kind of fell in love with it, and I did it as a hobby for years. For years, it wasn't until 2012 that I took it seriously and published my first book. And so far, I'm 8 books in. So.
Congratulations on that. Wow. 8 books. That's real to me. That's impressive because I've never written any books, so I'm really impressed. Well, that's good to hear, and that you haven't burned out. You once in a while you'll hear of an author who just can't write anymore. So I'm glad you're continuing your craft. Yes. For the audience, because I don't want to steal your thunder, tell the audience briefly a little bit about the book so that they can get an idea of what you've written about.
My books are all romantically themed at this point. Because I love romance and I love steamy. I love Hallmark with, you know, a little bit of flair, you know, because you can go to Hallmark anytime and get a good love story. And with everything that's going on right now, you know, something light or, you know, something entertaining, something to just enjoy, something that's not too deep, just, you know, something to pass the day. That's what I like to give. So all of my books at this point are romance.
Okay.
Some may be a little steamier, but they're all romance, and they all have a theme. You know, they give you conversation pieces. It's not just, you know, we're going to the ranch and we're going to fall in love and that's the end of the story. They all have a point. They all address something. So you do have something to talk about, but the main goal is for people to fall in love and find their happily ever after.
Okay. I noticed in this book that funerals are a significant theme. You've got 2 funerals, one for Mimi's cousin, and at the beginning of the book, you've got her brother. Well, talk about that a little bit, the significance that you found or the purpose that you put in the book.
Well, with funerals, it seems like there's a lot of retrospect or a lot of thought, you know, things that you don't consider prior to something happening to someone. You know, with like Mimi's brother, which is the reason in the story that she comes home because of his death. She has to face a lot of things, and even at the funeral, she's not even focused so much on the funeral itself. It's the people who are there and the things that have gone on. And funerals tend to bring that out. I mean, you tend to think a lot more. I mean, that's why they're so significant, you know, in my opinion, because, I mean, you have epiphanies. You really do. When you lose someone. And see, I know that from personal experience. I recently lost my mother, so I understand what she's going through in the thought process. And when you see people and you're wondering what's going on, or even why they're even there. I mean, things like that. So funerals bring thought. It brings a lot of thinking, and that's why I touched on funerals more than once.
Well, I thought you did a very good job of expressing how people felt, especially with Brian's. Now, for the audience, they're thinking he's interchanging Brian and Geronimo. The author uses both names, and so if I switch back and forth, you understand what I'm talking about. But I just thought you did a great job expressing how people felt. You're a very good author in that respect. And so I thought, wow, it was just a lot of intimacy on how they felt, the hurt or whatever. And so I thought I just wanted to compliment you on that. I thought you did a great job on that. Another thing that I noticed about your book, and you couldn't help but notice this, is you are very good about bringing up places in the Little Rock area. Pinnacle Mountain State Park, El Porton Mexican restaurant. I had never heard of that. I had to look that up. I thought, is this fiction or not? And it exists. What is it? McCain Boulevard in North Little Rock. And so just for the Little Rock, North Little Rock area, I want to thank you for doing that, because it made it feel more real to me. Hey, I know these places. I've been to some of them, and so thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Any story I write, if it's based somewhere else, I do research. Either I've been there or I plan to go there. And well, I'm from here, so I have to be sure to hit some landmarks so people here can, feel familiar. It makes it more real.
You bring up Houston a lot, and there's something I've just got to ask you. Do you like Houston?
I do. I lived there for a while.
Okay, I wondered, because you could have picked any city, but Houston is significant for Mimi, and just thought if she hated it, she wouldn't have said what she did. But I just had to be sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Houston is pretty vibrant. There's always something going on, even like on a Sunday night.
Okay.
Houston, I compare it to Atlanta. How Atlanta's always busy. Houston is just as busy, but it's a slightly slower pace.
Okay.
I guess because we're more southern, or the pace here is a little different, but there's always something to do in Houston.
I don't think I know that with Dallas is love-hate, but I don't think I've ever heard of anyone that really didn't like Houston. I'm sure you could find someone if you wanted to, but it just seemed, and so I thought, but like I said, I just had to be sure because it's a major theme in your book. Something else I want to bring up in this story is, and maybe it's my wrong interpretation, but it seems like family life, and let me explain that. Family life scares Tamika. Now, what I mean by that is she didn't want babies. She didn't want to have children. And it wasn't until eventually when she meets her new niece and she meets her nephew that gradually she begins to like the idea. And then with Dominic and his child, it's almost at the end of the story, you get the idea, the author has changed her view. Was there a reason that she just didn't seem to want babies, or that it seemed to scare? I could never see the reason myself. Maybe I'm not a good interpreter.
Well, no, I mean, it's a good point, because with everything that's going on, like when readers, read the book, they'll see that she had the issues with her brother, and things like that. And that's why she left home, because of her brother. I think the idea of starting a family for her was kind of scary, because what if she had a child who was like her brother? Because a lot of things happen and it's genetics. Sometimes it's genetics, and some people are scared of that. But some people just don't want, or at some point in their life they don't think they do. So she had the opportunity to evolve. I mean, if you don't know what family life is like, outside of your own experience or what it's like to have children, you may not want children, but you may come across a best friend or someone who has kids and they grow on you, and then you realize, this isn't so bad. So she had to do some growing up. She had spent a lot of her time running, so once she's home, she starts to open up, whereas she hadn't been willing to before. So with her niece and her nephew, her getting to know them, because she even mentions, I don't really know him like that. Even though it's her nephew, she don't know him. She had to warm up, and he had to warm up to her as well. But once that was done, it was like that's auntie's little nickname, little stanka wanka and things like that. So it's just a matter of evolving,
Yeah. Another thing I like, sometimes I'm not going to bring up one thing that we had just, Brian's death. I won't bring that up. You've got to read the book to find out what happens. But one thing I'm glad you do not explain is why Brian is the way he is. It struck me as being, that's the way sometimes life is. And now, sometimes medicine doctors don't know. Sometimes the author just wants you to think, what could it possibly have been? And so I'm glad, at least from my point of view, we don't understand why he was mean, and sometimes can be really nice, but sometimes mean. And I thought that was a good way of handling it, because we don't always get all at the answers in life.
That's true. With him, you know, everybody felt like there was something going on, but at the same time, you don't want to believe it. Like, as a mother, you don't want to believe that there's something wrong with your child. So, you know, her going to take him to see someone or get a diagnosis, that wasn't going to happen, because Natalie, her mother, you know, didn't want to believe that anything was wrong with her son, even though to everyone else it was clear that something was wrong. But the fact that it went unchecked is the catalyst for everything that happened, you know, that caused him to, you know, his demise, more or less. So sometimes you don't know, but you know there's something. So, you know, and that's in any family, maybe every family, there's somebody with something, but a lot of times it goes brushed over or just outright ignored. And so with Brian's case, that's kind of what happened, and that's what led to everything in the story. So
another thing that I've noticed in the book, now to me, it seemed like not everyone, but many people were mismatched. Geronimo and Ava, Mimi and Marcus, and Dominic and the mother of his child. Was that something deliberate, or was it just, because eventually there's some people who get together, but it just seemed like there was sort of a theme that people were mismatched. Was that something deliberate, or just happened by accident?
Well, it just kind of happened that way. Now with Geronimo and Ava, his intent wasn't pure with Ava.
So you find that out.
So that I wanted to make that, you know, prevalent. I wanted that to stand out. You know, she was meant to be something to play with for him. Because he was being spiteful. You know, towards, you know, Danny, you know, his sister. He knew how Danny felt about her, so he jumped in there, you know, just to be spiteful. You know, so that wasn't something that was really supposed to happen. It was basically his preventative measure to keep her from having, you know, a relationship with this person that she was fond of. So that comes into play. So definitely a mismatch, because she wasn't even his type. It's even mentioned in the book that she wasn't his type.
She was so thin, wasn't she? She didn't look like the other women.
She didn't look like, he preferred like what would be considered a video vixen, you know, the high makeup, high fashion types, and she wasn't that. And so it was, you know, it was already strange that he would be with her, but you know, in the end they ended up having children, so it was almost like he was stuck with her, and since he was stuck with her, he was going to make her stay stuck with him. So yeah, that was intentional, but you know, with Dominic and his baby mom, you know, it was one of those things. You know, sometimes it happens in life. You get with someone and it may just be for fun, and then things happen. And so with Marcus, that was Mimi's, I would say, boy toy or whatever. It wasn't a relationship, but they had an understanding. You know, and that's what she wanted, because she had this thing about being too close to people. I think her biggest issue was being too close. And so they had the understanding, you know, this is not going to go anywhere. It's just us having a nice time. But then things change when she come home. So
yes. Okay. All right. Okay. We would like to, at this point, change the direction and give you an opportunity to read a section from your book to let the audience know what kind of writer you are and what the story's about, and kind of whet their appetite.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go right into Geronimo's funeral. It kind of gives you insight to Mimi's thoughts. You know, she was already reluctant to be home and to have to come home for his funeral, so now she's there and she's thinking. So this passage is kind of letting you into her most intimate thoughts at that moment. So it was quiet. The only sounds heard in the church was the pastor's voice as he delivered the eulogy, and the occasional chirp of the birds in the distance. Mama sat between Aunt Gail and me. Danielle sat to my right, and Ava sat on the other side of my sister, holding on to my nephew, who didn't want to sit still. Surprised at the turnout, I looked around at the people who showed up for my brother's service. Honestly, I didn't think many people would attend. I glanced at a few guys who had t-shirts on honoring Geronimo. I had to hold in my slight disdain, because as far as I knew, one of them could have easily been responsible for my brother's death. The detectives had never given my mother anything solid on the case, and she didn't seem too enthused about pursuing the truth. I think she just wanted to get past the whole ordeal. So many crimes went unsolved in my hometown that I got the feeling she didn't want to get her hopes up about my brother's case. It was easier for her to leave it be. One thing for sure, she didn't have to worry about me pressing her to seek justice for my brother's death. I just didn't trust those knuckleheads in the t-shirts. Not a single one of them had come to the house to check on my mother. If they were such good friends of my brother's, why hadn't just one of them graced my mother's doorstep? I was sure their presence was mostly for show. People always wanted to act like they were so close to folks once they were dead, getting shirts made. I rolled my eyes and continued to look around. A few familiar faces were mixed in with the family members who had come to show support and pay their respects. Two chicks who I was sure were his exes were present. One of them looked more shaken up than Ava. It made me wonder if Geronimo had still been hitting it while in a relationship with his baby mama. Not my business, though, I told myself. Besides, it was nothing to be concerned with now. My brother wouldn't be banging anyone else. My mother tapped on my leg as if telling me to pay attention, so I returned my focus to the pastor and the brief eulogy he gave in remembrance of my brother. I hated it. He spoke of how Geronimo was an energetic child and blah, blah, blah. He was my brother and I loved him simply because of that, but he was no saint by any means. Folks always feel obligated to paint a pretty picture of people who pass away. It's one of the reasons I didn't like going to funerals. If someone was a jerk when they were alive, let them be remembered as the jerk they were in death. Keep it real. That's just my opinion, though.
Okay, very good. Yes. It was, and then, yes, brilliant. I think you couldn't have picked a better section to read from. Yes, it gives you an idea of what's going on and maybe what to expect. Yes. Now, before we began this program, you were telling us you're working on another book, and we'd love to have you tell the audience what it's about and when can they expect it.
Well, what I'm working on now is tentatively titled The Ascendants. I'm a fan of superhero movies, and I'm a big fan of Marvel and DC and things like that. But being, someone who grew up in an urban area, in North Little Rock, this area here, you don't see a lot of Black superheroes or young superheroes. So what I'm working on now is a story about 4 or 5 young superheroes, urban high school kids who will be blessed with gifts, and so they will become our superheroes. So I thought it'd be neat to add something new to the genre. So it's lacking, so I'm going to add to it, and hopefully there'll be other authors who follow suit.
When can we expect this?
Tentative date is in July because I have an event in Atlanta in July, and so I would like to have that book there for readers because to give a more diverse group.
All right. Now, Renee, how can people contact you? Are you in social media? If they want to buy a copy of the book or if they want to contact you, what social media do you use, or how could they reach you?
My primary source is Facebook because everyone lives on Facebook. I can be found under my personal because I love interacting with readers, and you would simply find me under Renee Wallace. But I also have my author page, which would be facebook.com/Renee Wallace Books. My books can be found on Amazon. If you're a Kindle reader, they're on Kindle Unlimited. Some of my books are in Pyramid Art Gallery in Little Rock, and you can find my books at different online retailers.
Okay, all right. Well, best wishes on this, and best wishes on your continued writing, because I think people are going to be looking forward to the next book, and I hope that this book does continue to do well. Yes. All right. Having said that, then, thank you for joining us today. It has been a pleasure. If you're interested in reading more from Ms. Wallace, please visit us at the library or find us online at our website, laymanlibrary.org. Please join us again next time and have a great day, everyone.